Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
Recently, some comments made news around the world. Just before becoming president again was a possibility, Donald Trump talked about his ideas for the United States. He spoke about the Panama Canal. He said China was operating it and that this was wrong. He believed the United States needed the canal for its economy. He also talked about Greenland, the very large island covered in ice. He said the United States needed Greenland for its national security. He questioned if Denmark really had the right to Greenland and suggested Denmark should give it up. He even mentioned possible actions if Denmark did not agree. When asked, he did not promise not to use force to get the Panama Canal or Greenland if talks failed. These words caused surprise and concern globally. People wondered how serious these ideas were. The leader of Panama stated clearly that the canal belongs completely to Panama and this cannot be changed. Leaders in Denmark and Greenland also responded firmly. They said Greenland is not for sale to America. The Danish king, Frederick X, also made a quiet statement. He ordered an update to the royal family symbol. The change made the polar bear, which represents Greenland in the Kingdom of Denmark, more noticeable. This discussion about who should control Greenland, Denmark, the United States, or Greenland itself is mostly happening online for now. But why is there talk about Greenland? To understand the situation, we need to look at Greenland's past and why it is so valuable. This is not the first time Mr. Trump has shown interest in Greenland. In 2019, during his first time as president, he suggested that America should try to buy the island. Greenland is huge, about the size of Western Europe. The government in Denmark politely but clearly said no to this offer back then. That situation caused some small problems between the two countries, which are usually strong friends. However, the idea of the United States wanting Greenland is much older than these recent events. American interest in this large island started a long time ago, even before Mr. Trump. To understand why Greenland is important today, and why different countries are interested, we need to know more about its history and its location. The next chapters will explore Greenland's past, its importance during difficult times like the Cold War, and the reasons it is becoming important again today, including its resources and strategic position. 2. Old times. People called Vikings came to Greenland around the year 1000. They built homes and lived there for centuries. But after about 450 years, around 1450, the last Vikings disappeared from Greenland. Around the same time, the ancestors of today's Inuit people started to arrive. They were skilled hunters and fishers, and they made the large island their permanent home. Many years passed. Then in 1721, people from Denmark returned. Denmark started settlements again, and soon it began to control the island. Greenland became a Danish colony, ruled from Denmark in Europe. For hundreds of years, Denmark made the decisions for Greenland. During World War II, things changed for a while. Germany occupied Denmark in Europe. The United States worried Germany might try to take Greenland. So from 1941 to 1945, The U.S. military stayed in Greenland to protect it and keep it out of Germany's hands during the war. When the war ended, the United States gave control of Greenland back to Denmark. After this, Denmark changed Greenland's status. It became an official county of Denmark, not just a colony far away. The United States has been interested in Greenland for a very long time. The U.S. has bought large lands before. For example, it bought the huge territory of Alaska from Russia in 1867. Around that time, the U.S. government considered buying Greenland too. Secretary of State William H. Seward received a report about it. The report suggested owning Greenland and Alaska could pressure Canada, which lies between them. Seward thought this might make Canada want to join the U.S. In 1868, Seward discussed buying Greenland and Iceland with Denmark, but he never made a formal offer. The U.S. Congress had recently rejected buying other Danish islands, the Danish West Indies. Seward believed Congress would say no again, so he dropped the idea. Later, U.S. interest in the Danish West Indies grew. These islands are in the Caribbean Sea and were in a strategic location. The U.S. worried Germany might take the islands from Denmark. A German base there could threaten the important Panama Canal. German ships could easily attack ships going to or from the canal, which was vital for U.S. trade and military. In 1916, Denmark agreed to sell the Danish West Indies to America. But Denmark asked for something important first. They wanted the U.S. government to officially accept Denmark's control over all of Greenland. The United States accepted the deal. In 1917, the U.S. bought the Danish West Indies. These islands are now called the U.S. Virgin Islands. At the same time, America formally recognized that Greenland was Danish territory. This official recognition by the powerful United States was very important for Denmark's claim over the huge island. This history shows U.S. interest is not new. 3. Cold War years. After the Second World War ended, the world entered a new period called the Cold War. This was a time of tension between two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. During these years, Greenland became extremely important, mainly because of its location. The island is situated almost exactly halfway between Washington, D.C. and Moscow. This meant it was on the shortest flight path for airplanes traveling between the two powerful countries. Because of this key position, the United States military became very interested in Greenland. They saw the island as a vital place for their security. American leaders believed that having bases in Greenland would allow their bombers and missiles to reach the Soviet Union very quickly if a war started. At the same time, Greenland could act as America's first line of defense. Radar stations there could spot Soviet planes or missiles flying over the Arctic towards North America, giving the U.S. time to react. This strategic importance led the U.S. government to make a secret offer in 1946. They asked Denmark if they could buy Greenland. The offer was for $100 million in gold, which is worth about $1 billion today. The Americans argued that selling Greenland would be good for Denmark too. It would stop people from criticizing U.S. military bases on Danish land and save Denmark the money it spent supporting Greenland. However, the Danish government said no. The Danish foreign minister explained that while Denmark was thankful for American help during the war, they did not want to sell the entire island. Even though Denmark refused to sell Greenland, they understood its importance to the United States. The two countries worked together closely on defense matters. Both Denmark and the U.S. were among the first members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, created in 1949. Then, in 1951, they signed a special agreement. This agreement allowed the United States to build a very large Air Force base in the far northwest of Greenland. This base became known as Thule Air Base. Thule Air Base quickly became one of the most important American military bases outside the U.S. during the Cold War. It served several critical purposes. U.S. spy planes used the base to fly missions over the northern parts of the Soviet Union. It was also a key location for American long-range bombers carrying nuclear weapons, ready to respond if needed. Furthermore, powerful radar systems were built at Thule. These radars constantly watched the skies over the Arctic, ready to detect any long-range missiles the Soviet Union might launch towards the United States. Greenland was also vital for naval strategy during the Cold War. The main base for the Soviet Union's nuclear submarines was in the far north, near Murmansk. If these submarines wanted to sail into the Atlantic Ocean to threaten the U.S. East Coast, they had to travel through the waters between Greenland, Iceland, and the United Kingdom. This area became known as the GIUK Gap. For the U.S. Navy, controlling the GIUK Gap and tracking Soviet submarines passing through it was a top priority. Greenland's location made it essential for monitoring this important sea passage. This naval importance ensured that the U.S. remained interested in having a military presence in Greenland throughout the Cold War period. 4. Why look again? After the Cold War finished in the early 1990s, America was less interested in Greenland for about 20 years. The relationship with Russia was better for a time. The American military did much less at the Thule base in Greenland. But things changed in the years around 2010 and 2020. America started to look at Greenland again for several reasons. One big reason was new problems with Russia. Trouble started again after Russia took control of Crimea in 2014. It got worse after Russia attacked all of Ukraine in early 2022. Russia also began to build up its military strength in the Arctic. It put soldiers and weapons back into old Soviet military bases there. Now, Russia has many more bases in the Arctic than NATO countries do. Russia's important submarine base is in Murmansk, in the far north. This made America think again about Greenland's location for defense. But there were new reasons too. The area of sea between Greenland, Iceland, and the United Kingdom, called the GIUK Gap, became important again. During the Cold War, it was important for watching Soviet submarines. Now, it is also important because valuable internet cables lie under the sea there. These cables connect different parts of the world. Two very important cables pass near Greenland. One connects Japan and Europe. Another connects Canada and Northern Europe. If Russian submarines could get through the GIUK Gap without being seen, they might be able to cut the many internet cables between America and Europe. This could cause big problems for communication, especially for the US military in Europe if there was a conflict. Some people worried that Denmark could not watch Greenland well enough. In 2020, one report called Greenland a security problem area. Greenland has a very long coast, almost 27,000 miles long. It is mostly empty land, making it very hard to watch. Denmark is a small country and did not spend a lot of money on its military for many years after the Cold War. Denmark is responsible for defending Greenland, but its military force there has been very small. For example, in 2020, Denmark only had 4 patrol ships, 4 helicopters, 1 plane for watching the sea, and 6 dog sled teams to cover all of Greenland. This area is huge, about the size of Western Europe. Because of these worries, the US government asked Denmark to get better at watching Greenland from the air. Some experts suggested that Greenland should be included in NORAD, the North American Air Defense System, to help watch the area. Also, the old American air base at Thule has changed. It is now called Pitofik Space Base and is run by the U.S. Space Force. This base has become even more important. The U.S. military uses special satellites that fly over the North Pole. These satellites help with communication, weather reports, and taking pictures. They need a base on the ground in the Arctic to control them and get information. America only has 2 bases like this, Pitofik in Greenland and another one in Alaska. If the U.S. lost access to Pitofik, maybe because Greenland became independent and told the U.S. to leave, then America would only have the base in Alaska. This would mean there was no backup if something went wrong. This makes Pitofik very important for U.S. security. 5. A lot under the ice. The world is getting warmer, and this climate change is causing big changes in the Arctic. The thick sea ice that covered the Arctic Ocean for a very long time is starting to melt and get smaller. Soon, this might mean that large cargo ships can travel through Arctic waters more easily. This opens up new ways for ships to travel between continents. Greenland is in a very good location for these new sea routes. 2 routes, the Northwest Passage through Canada and the Northern Sea Route along Russia, are expected to be open for ships for most of the year in the next 10 years or so. There is also talk about a future route called the Transpolar Sea Route. This route would go straight across the North Pole, very close to Greenland's east coast. Scientists think this route might be usable around the year 2050. If ships can use the Transpolar Sea Route, it will be the shortest way to travel by sea between Asia and Europe, and also between Asia and the eastern parts of the Americas. This could save a lot of time and money compared to using the Suez Canal or the Panama Canal. Because Greenland is so close to these routes, the country that controls Greenland could have a lot of influence over this important future trade path. But the melting ice is not just opening up sea routes. It is also making it easier to think about the huge amount of valuable things hidden under Greenland's ice and land. Greenland has a very large amount of natural resources, especially minerals, that many countries want. Many of these minerals are very important for today's technology and for the future. The United States government has a list of 50 minerals that it says are needed for its economy and security. Greenland has rock deposits that contain 43 of these 50 important minerals. This includes large amounts of rare earth elements. Rare earth elements are special minerals needed for things like smartphones, computers, and military equipment. Right now, China produces most of the world's rare earth elements, about 60%. China also processes about 85% of them. This gives China a lot of control. But Greenland has the largest known amount of these rare earth elements outside of China. Greenland also has very large amounts of graphite and lithium. Graphite is used to make batteries for electric cars and in nuclear reactors. Lithium is also very important for electric car batteries. China produces most of the world's graphite, about 77%. Australia and Chile produce most of the world's lithium, nearly 80%. If Greenland starts mining its graphite and lithium, it could become a world leader in supplying these minerals. This would be very important for the future of electric vehicles. Other important minerals found in Greenland include neodymium and terbium, used for strong magnets in electric motors and tanks. There is also molybdenum, which makes steel stronger for things like wind turbines built in the sea. Basic metals like cobalt, copper, iron, zinc, and nickel are also there in large amounts. Greenland even has one of the world's biggest known deposits of uranium, found in the south. This single place might have more uranium than the entire United States. Uranium is used for nuclear power. Besides minerals, scientists believe there are also large amounts of oil and gas under the sea off Greenland's coast. One study from 2008 estimated there could be about 52 billion barrels of oil. If this is correct, it would be about 3% of all the known oil in the world. This would make Greenland one of the top 10 countries for oil reserves, similar to Libya. All these resources, the minerals, oil, and gas, make Greenland very important. They are needed for new technology, for green energy like electric cars and wind power, and for national security. Because countries like the United States want to depend less on China for these materials, Greenland's resources look even more valuable. Access to Greenland's wealth could change who controls the supply of materials needed for the future. 6. Not easy land. Greenland has many valuable resources under its ice, like important minerals and maybe oil and gas. Many countries are interested in these resources. However, getting these valuable things out of the ground is very, very difficult. Greenland is a land with big challenges. One of the biggest problems is the environment. The weather in Greenland is extremely cold and harsh for most of the year. Also, a huge amount of the island is covered by a permanent ice sheet. This ice covers about 4/5 of Greenland. It is not just a thin layer of ice, it is incredibly thick. In the middle of the island, the ice can be up to 3 kilometers deep. This makes building anything or traveling very hard. Another challenge is the small number of people living there. Greenland is the world's largest island, but its population is very small. Only about 56,000 people live in Greenland. These people live in several small towns, mostly along the coast where there is no ice. The towns are spread out and far apart from each other. There are no roads connecting these towns. If people want to travel from one town to another, they cannot drive a car. They must travel by airplane or by boat. In some areas, people also use snowmobiles or traditional dog sleds to travel across the snow and ice, but this is not possible between all towns. Because the land is difficult and the towns are far apart, building infrastructure is a huge challenge. Infrastructure means things like roads, ports, airports, and buildings needed for mining. It costs a very large amount of money to build these things in Greenland. The difficult environment and the need to bring materials over long distances make everything more expensive. For example, building a mine needs roads, power, and places for workers to live. Building a port for ships is also hard. Even the sea presents problems. The ports in Greenland are not free of ice all year round. For most of the year, the sea near the coast is frozen. Ships can only reach the ports for maybe a couple of months during the short summer. This means that exporting minerals or other goods is difficult. Special ships called icebreakers are often needed to travel through the icy waters. Using icebreakers costs more money and makes development even more expensive. Greenland's economy also faces difficulties. Right now, Greenland depends heavily on money from Denmark. Each year, the Danish government gives Greenland around $500 million in financial support. This money is extremely important for Greenland. It makes up about 20% of Greenland's total economy, or GDP. It also pays for more than half of the Greenlandic government's budget. This money helps pay for important public services like schools, healthcare, and government jobs. Without this money from Denmark, it would be very hard for Greenland to support its people. All these factors, the harsh environment, the thick ice, the small and scattered population, the lack of roads, the high costs of building, the frozen ports, and the dependence on Danish money, make Greenland a not easy land. Developing its rich natural resources is a big task with many obstacles. 7. Wanting to be free. Greenland has been moving towards having more control over its own country for many years. In 1979, Denmark gave Greenland home rule. This meant Greenland got its own parliament and could make decisions about things inside the country, like rules for mining. However, Denmark still controlled Greenland's relationships with other countries and its security. Later, in 2009, the people of Greenland voted for more power. After this vote, Greenland and Denmark agreed on the Self-Government Act. This act created a legal way for Greenland to become fully independent from Denmark if its people choose to. Greenland can hold a special vote, called a referendum, about independence. If most people vote yes, the Danish parliament would then need to agree. Today, many people in Greenland want their country to be completely independent. A poll from 2019 showed that about 2/3 of the people support independence. There are strong feelings about this. Greenland's leader recently said clearly, "We don't want to be Danes, we don't want to be Americans, we want to be Greenlanders." These feelings come partly from difficult events in the past. During the time Denmark had more control, after the Second World War, Danish authorities did things that are now seen very negatively. In the 1950s, they took 22 Inuit children away from their families. These children were sent to Denmark to learn Danish ways and then sent back to Greenland. The idea was to make the cultures closer, but it caused much sadness. In 2022, the Danish government said sorry to the 6 children who were still alive. Another serious issue was a birth control program in the 1960s and 70s. Danish health workers put devices called IUDs inside thousands of Inuit women and girls, often without their agreement. The Danish government said this was to lower the number of babies being born. The program worked, and the birth rate in Greenland fell by half very quickly. But today, many Greenlanders feel this was a terrible action. Some leaders in Greenland have even called it a genocide. Denmark started a big investigation into this program in 2023, which will finish in 2025. 67 women are now asking for money from the Danish government because they say this happened to them against their will. These past problems make many Greenlanders want to be separate from Denmark. However, becoming independent is very difficult because of money. Greenland depends a lot on money from Denmark. Every year, Denmark gives Greenland about $500 million. This money is very important. It makes up about 20% of Greenland's whole economy, GDP, and pays for more than half of the Greenlandic government's spending on things like jobs, schools, and hospitals. If Greenland becomes independent, this money would stop. This would cause huge problems for the economy and government services immediately. There is an agreement now that if Greenland starts earning a lot of money from mining its resources, Denmark will give less money. This reduces the motivation for Greenland to quickly develop its mines. Experts think it could take 20 years after mining starts before Greenland sees real economic benefits. Even if Greenland could start large mining projects, there is another big challenge: people. Greenland is huge, but only about 56,000 people live there. The country does not have enough workers with the right skills to build and run large mines. Currently, almost everyone who can work already has a job, and many work for the government. There is almost no unemployment, meaning there are no extra workers available. So, to develop its resources, Greenland would need to bring in thousands of workers from other countries. This happened in some rich countries in the Middle East when they found oil. But for Greenland, with its very small population, bringing in so many foreigners could change the society very quickly and deeply. For example, one average mine might need about 300 foreign workers. 10 mines would need 3,000 foreign workers, increasing the island's population by 5%. Some studies suggest Greenland's population could double in just a few years if large-scale mining begins. This leads to another worry: corruption. If Greenland suddenly gets very rich from mining, there is a risk that the money will not be managed well. Because the population is small and the country has depended on Danish money for so long, there's a danger that powerful people could take too much of the new wealth. It could be like giving a small town control over huge oil fields. This could lead to unfairness and possibly bad government decisions. Some worry that a corrupted Greenland might become too close to countries like China or Russia. For the people of Greenland, wanting independence brings difficult choices about their economy, their society, and their future. 8. What will happen? Greenland is at an important point in its history. Its people need to think about what kind of future they want. There are several different paths the country could take. Each path has good things and difficult things about it. One choice is to stay connected with Denmark. Greenland already gets a lot of money help from Denmark every year. This money pays for important services like schools and hospitals. Staying with Denmark means this help would continue. It offers a safe financial future. However, many people in Greenland want more control over their own country. They feel that staying with Denmark limits their freedom, even with the self-government they have now. There are also difficult feelings about things that happened in the past between Denmark and Greenland. Another choice is for Greenland to become fully independent. This is what many Greenlanders say they want. Independence would mean Greenland makes all its own decisions about everything, including its relationships with other countries. But there is a big problem: money. If Greenland becomes independent, the money help from Denmark would stop. Greenland would need to find new ways to support itself. The most likely way is through mining the rich natural resources under its ice. But starting large mining operations costs a huge amount of money, which Greenland does not have. It would need money from other countries. Mining would also bring big changes. Greenland has only about 56,000 people. Big mines would need thousands of foreign workers. This could change Greenland's society very quickly. There is also a worry about corruption. If a lot of money comes into the country very fast, some people might use it wrongly. A third idea is the one suggested by Donald Trump. The United States could buy Greenland. This sounds strange to many, but the U.S. has bought land before. Some people estimate Greenland could be worth around $50 billion. If the U.S. bought Greenland, maybe every person living there could get about $1 million. Supporters might say that becoming part of the U.S. would bring strong government systems, which could prevent corruption. It would also mean the powerful U.S. military would protect Greenland and the Arctic region. But this idea has big problems too. Denmark and Greenland have clearly said Greenland is not for sale. Forcing a sale would badly hurt America's relationships with Denmark and other allies around the world. It could make other countries worry about U.S. actions. There is another possible path called a Compact of Free Association, or COFA. The United States already has this kind of agreement with some independent island nations in the Pacific Ocean. In a COFA, the country stays independent, but it has a very close relationship with the U.S. People can travel and work freely between the countries. The smaller country gets access to some U.S. services and money help. In return, the U.S. military can use land in the country and takes care of its defense. The country agrees not to let other foreign militaries use its land without U.S. agreement. A COFA could give Greenland independence, but also provide money and security through the U.S. Some people in Greenland have even suggested a special COFA involving both the U.S. and Denmark. In the end, the future of Greenland must be decided by the people who live there. They have several choices: staying with Denmark, becoming fully independent, joining the US, or maybe a COFA agreement. It is their land and their future. The world should respect the decision the people of Greenland make for themselves.
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.